In a recent issue of the Mensa Bulletin, um, there was an article called What's the Harm? And it's all really about matters of faith and science. But I'm afraid it comes down on the idea that people of faith are just stubborn, ignorant idiots, and they won't relent to the truth, that the guy, the author of the article, believes about some scientific positions. And he really accosts the Creation Museum that Answers in Genesis has um, in Kentucky, across the river from Cincinnati, um, in defense of unpopular science. So they think they're defending themselves against an attack. And of course, they mention the Adam and Eve story and call it a story. They mention Hogwarts and Disney and P.T. Barnum. But here's a couple of interesting things here that they say. If one is open to the possibility that the supreme being he or she worships may have also created science when created everything else. Well, no, humans create science if science is a body of knowledge. God already had science because he knows everything. And so if he's a supreme being, this person doesn't seem to understand what faith, religious faith, what biblically based faith is. And I find this constantly about the science of creation science. When I debate evolutionists in a public forum, I find that they have absolutely no knowledge of what the creation model says. And they'll just parrot some things they heard other evolutionists say about us. They never bothered to study us. I do have an unfair advantage. I was forced in my degrees to be taught evolution theory as it was. I even took 3 credits beyond what my degree required in biology just so that I could take a course on evolution specifically. And so that I would learn it and I could say, well, I do understand. I'm not arguing from ignorance. Well, they are arguing from ignorance in this article, and over and over again we see this. Well, they may understand their position. They don't understand what they mean when they say faith and science, though, and yet they write articles all about something they don't really understand or know anything about, which is, of course, a problem. Why can't you just discard science that you don't like or conflicts with your faith? Well, I don't discard science. Kenneth Miller and I once had a one-on-one conversation. He said, "You creationists, you just want to reject all of science." I said, "No, I love science. I'm a science teacher." I said, "It's the evolution posit that I'm rejecting." But they like to say that that's so ingrained in science that if you reject evolution, you're rejecting science. Well, that's really a fake argument because I don't do that. So fake arguments abound in the article too. Look at what this says here. Let's focus on it. A much bigger danger, he says, arises when people come to view belief in scientific evidence as optional. Evidence is not proof. They're not the same thing. We all use the exact same evidence, creationists and evolutionists. We just interpret it through a different paradigm or lens. Again, this is a very naive statement. Taking the luxury and liberty to say such a naive statement and then make it sound unchallenged as proof. Oh, next time I'm going to go over some letters to the editor in response to this article that came out in the next issue of Mensa Bulletin. But let's take a look. Scientific hypotheses are sometimes modified or overturned with the arrival of new or better evidence. Oh, no, they're not. Darwinian evolution has been very little modified and certainly needs to be overturned. As an atheist professor from Yale has recently said, it needs to be overturned and abandoned. But this guy's saying, well, science corrects itself, but faith and opinion aren't evidence, and pretending they are is the real harm. Faith in what? How about your faith in Darwin? How about your faith that the origin of the species is infallible and is inspired by, I don't know what God or authority they're talking about, maybe the human spirit they believe is infallible. This bothers me. I'm angry, but not as much as I am bothered and annoyed by the bad logic, bad science, and bad thinking, and certainly the bad theology of not understanding your opponent in a discussion, making no effort to understand what it is you're arguing against, is, I'm afraid, far more naive and dangerous than anything that the What's the Harm article is talking about. So next time, we'll take a look at 2 letters to the editor in response to this, one that agreed with the author and one that did not. God bless. Have a good day. Dr.